So what comes next?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. And then this is the program. Am I on? Okay. Good evening, everyone.
DCC, let us know.
And thank you so much for coming. I'm glad that we got in before the storm started. And so hopefully it's my prayer that the storm will have passed us by when we leave out. But welcome to District 5 SPLOST 2 Town Hall meeting. 4 years ago, we hosted a similar meeting to provide you with an update on the special purpose land option sales tax, which, as you know, was supported by the DeKalb County voters by 71%. And so give yourself a hand on that. We really needed it. And that SPLOST was the first that DeKalb has ever had. Gwinnett had one, Cobb had one, all of the metro cities have had a SPLOST except for us. So it made significant impacts to our infrastructure. It allowed us to pave over 300 miles of road, which will continue if the SPLOST 2 referendum is passed. In November, you will have an opportunity to consider SPLOST 2 and the EHOS, which if passed together, can provide $1 billion in property tax relief to DeKalb homeowners. And I say $1 billion in property tax relief. The relief comes from a proposed equalized homestead option sales tax called EHOS. And it credits, it's a credit for homeowners who qualify for a homestead exemption. If approved, this relief could begin in 2024. So everyone here that owns a house, and that house is your primary residence, should have the homestead exemption. Is that right? Yeah. So this, with the homestead exemption, the EHOS, that means we're not paying any county property taxes. And, it's not many folk can say that. But we can say that in DeKalb. Now, you do pay taxes, but it's not DeKalb property tax. It's your school board taxes and other taxes, but they're not DeKalb taxes. So tonight, we have a STAR team from DeKalb County Administration to walk us through the process of what has taken place thus far in preparation of the SPLOST 2 vote and what we can expect as a result. And so at this time, I would like to acknowledge the team that we have here with us tonight. We have our COO, which I think is the best COO in the world, Zach Williams. We have TJ Sigler, the Director of Office and Budget and Management, and he's the best also. We have Chris. Is Chris here yet? Okay, Chris is stepping in, and Chris is the SPLOST program. He has the SPLOST program management team. And we also have Kathy Warren, Kathy from the collaborative group. And this is Chris here. raise your hand, Chris. I know that's right. Once the team completes their presentation, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. But I want to also introduce my team that worked diligently in putting this together. My chief of staff, Demetrius McCoy, my director of constituent service, Demetrius Pinkett, and then my intern that has been working so hard, Leanne Concrete. Leanne, you want to come in and raise your hand so that they can see you? There she is. Okay. So without any further ado, I do like to recognize that we have, let me see, that's Vanessa Wynn, who is City Council of Latonia. And we're in the great city of Latonia. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zach Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'd like for you to sit up here with me. You too, CJ. Can y'all see the screen? Can they see the screen if we sitting here? Oh, okay.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner, and thank all of you for coming out and giving me an opportunity just to share a little bit about what we've done with SPLOST 1 and kind of set the stage for what we're talking about in SPLOST 2. One of the things I would be remiss, Commissioner, I don't get out of my office as often as I would like to, but this is a lovely facility. And it's a lovely facility thanks to the leadership of Commissioner Mereda Davis-Johnson.
And thank you.
And so thank you for what you do. And so what I want to do is kind of start this conversation today reflecting a little bit on SPLOST 1. Okay, and SPLOST 1, we'll start with the first slide, and I'm going to assume that as I call them out, you'll be able to kind of keep up, but with the vision statement for SPLOST 1. Okay, and the vision statement calls for or states that the DeKalb County Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax will support countywide capital outlay improvements that promote a high quality of life for all residents. So this is when we were contemplating a SPLOST 1, we wanted to ensure that we were being as broad thinking as possible, and that we looked at things in terms of how can we improve the county overall. Right, so we wouldn't just be isolationist and think of this area or this area, but if we invest in things like our fire system, right, that really affects the entire county. If we invest in things like our library, if we invest in things like our roads, all of those are critically important for the overall county of, the overall quality of life throughout the county. So what I want to do is show a quick video, the next slide please, and video that highlights some of the accomplishments that we had with SPLOST 1. So is the video playing, or else I can sing a little bit? I'm a big American Idol fan, so if you need me to sing.
Citizens of DeKalb County voted in 2017 to fund the county's first ever SPLOST, a special purpose local option sales tax. The program is expected to generate more than $388 million through a one-set sales tax that is earmarked for capital projects and distributed among 4 categories: transportation, public safety, parks and recreation and community facilities. Let's take a closer look at how these funds are being used to improve our community.
Overall, SPLOST is expected to generate more than $600 million for DeKalb County and its cities. Of the county's share of more than $388 million SPLOST dollars, $244 million are slated to support transportation projects and improve high-priority corridors, including funding for more than $11 million to rebuild the Cedar Grove Bridge over the Norfolk Southern Railroad to help restore this vital artery. A 2.2-mile extension of the Michelle Obama Trail to move closer to connecting with the South River Multi-Use Trail and ultimately the Atlanta Beltline. Resurfacing more than 160 miles of road to date, with nearly another 100 miles under construction and 26 miles in advertisement to reach an overall goal of 300 miles throughout the entire county. Completing missing sidewalk segments throughout the county to improve access to schools, community facilities, and bus stops. SPLOST funding is also supporting traffic and safety improvements in coordination with a major water line replacement and installing mini roundabouts at several intersections to reduce excessive speeding. SPLOST will help fund $87 million for public safety projects, including enhancements benefiting DeKalb's fire rescue and police departments. Some of those projects are the first of 5 new fire stations planned for DeKalb County, incorporating state-of-the-art health and safety features and community rooms. Also, roof replacements and alarm system upgrades throughout many of the 26 active fire stations in DeKalb. 6 new classroom buildings at the DeKalb County Fire Rescue Academy, and more than $9 million for new police cars, rapid response fire vehicles, and fire radio systems. In the capital outlay category, SPLOST has allocated $57 million for both parks and recreation and community facilities. $2.5 million of SPLOST funds, along with a $1.5 million contribution from the Atlanta Braves Foundation, have been used to support renovated baseball fields featuring artificial turf. And more than $2 million to resurface tennis and basketball courts, including 17 courts at the Mason Mill Tennis Center. $20 million SPLOST dollars have been allocated for general repairs at community facilities, including significant upgrades and repairs at the Lou Walker and Warren Street Senior Centers. More than $16 million for DeKalb County Courthouse repairs and improvements. A new roof for the historic Callenwald Fine Arts Center, and starting reconstruction of the N.H. Scott Pool.
SPLOST is making a tangible impact on the lives of DeKalb County residents. Thank you for this opportunity to showcase your pennies at work.
Thank you. And hopefully just the brief video is able to kind of illustrate what we've been working on. And thanks to the overwhelming approval of the voters, we got the opportunity back in 2017 to implement SPLOST 1, to spend approximately 388, it'll be north of 400 million actually, tax dollars generated by our residents and visitors who have commerce here in DeKalb County, and we're putting it to good use. And so, as a result of SPLOST 1, next slide, there were some key components and key differences and for the SPLOST 1. Next slide, and I want to talk a little bit about the overview. And it's important to note that our first SPLOST, we call it the SPLOST with training wheels, right? It wasn't the SPLOST like you see in other jurisdictions. It was different here in DeKalb, and there's whole history behind that, but it is what it is, okay? We did not have a SPLOST in SPLOST 1 like what is being proposed in SPLOST 2. In SPLOST 1, we were restricted as to how we could spend the funds. 85% of the expenditures was for transportation and public safety, and then 15% was for parks and other capital repairs. And so what did we do with the money? We spent it on transportation with emphasis on resurfacing. The 300 miles that we're attempting to pave, and we're going to come pretty dang close, is only because of SPLOST 1. Public safety facilities and equipment, major investments in police vehicles and fire stations as well as fire vehicles. Those were both critical components in the SPLOST 1 that we wanted to invest in because at the end of the day, they make the county safer and they increase and enhance the quality of life for the entire county. So thanks to SPLOST 1, we were able to begin really a down payment on those investments. Capital repairs to parks and athletic facilities. When we talk about parks and athletic facilities, we don't simply look at them as just places for recreation. When we talk about parks and recreational facilities, we see it as we, as local government, have a responsibility, and we are in competition, quite frankly, with the gangs, with the drug dealers, and all these other bad elements who want our children's time. And so if we can create an environment with clean, safe, open parks and activities for young people, then that's going to often keep them away from circumstances and situations that are harmful to them. And then capital repairs to county buildings. Because we hadn't had dedicated funding in any meaningful amount, a lot of our facilities were neglected. A lot of our facilities, we did not have the investment and to pay for the upkeep. And just like any other business, just like all of our homes, just like our cars, it's often pay now or pay more later. If you don't invest in maintenance and upkeep, over time it's simply going to get more expensive. It doesn't get any better without investment. Thank you to SPLOST 1, we were able to invest in our county buildings, our parks and our athletic facilities, public safety facilities and equipment, and of course, our roads. So let me talk about SPLOST 2. Next slide. And I want to pull up the slide with the SPLOST 2 overview. Because it's important to articulate what we were able to do because of the momentum created in SPLOST 1, because of the overwhelming support by the citizenry in SPLOST 1. On Wednesday, May 3rd, the governor signed HB 431, which authorizes DeKalb County to hold a SPLOST 2 referendum on November 7th, 2023. Okay, so the governor signed the bill on May 3rd. Our legislative success would not have been possible without the unanimous support of DeKalb's House and Senate delegations. Unanimous support. And the legislation earned overwhelming bipartisan support in the Georgia House of Representatives and State Senate. It passed the House by 174-0. And I don't know about you, I'm kind of a political junkie at times, and I might watch a little more CNN and MSNBC and others that I should, but 174-0 is a testament and a vote of confidence to the leadership of Commissioner Davis Johnson, her colleagues, and of course the CEO, and the rest of the team who's been assembled. And so with that passage, 174-0 and 48-4 in the Senate, next, the county commissioners and mayors signed letters of support, which significantly strengthen our bargaining position under the Gold Dome. So actually going into that conversation, we had that coalition. And our governmental affairs legal teams did a tremendous job in promoting what we were trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, the vote of confidence under the Gold Dome was a vote that DeKalb County is on the right track, DeKalb County is on the rise, and DeKalb County deserves more investment in its infrastructure. No longer do we have to look over to Gwinnett or Cobb or other places and say, well, how is it that they're able to do this, that, or the other? We are able to do that, and this referendum on November 7th allows us to continue that. Let's talk about how SPLOST 2 is different. Next slide. The first SPLOST had a total of 4 categories that I articulated, right? we were restricted to 4 that I talked about, which was really transportation, public safety, capital repairs at the end of the day. That's what it was. But now, with SPLOST 2, the categories, and I'll read through them really quick: roads, streets, bridges, sidewalks, bike paths, public safety and airport facilities, qualified repairs of existing capital outlay projects, cultural, recreational, historic facilities, courthouse administrative, correctional, detention facilities, stormwater, capital projects by county authority operated in conjunction with one or more cities. So the opportunity to leverage funding and work together in partnership with other jurisdictions, water and sewer projects, okay? And a critical component for economic development, especially in South DeKalb, where a lot of the investment hasn't happened in water and sewer infrastructure. We can use SPLOST funds for those now. Retirement of general obligation debt, voting capital equipment, transportation facilities for people or goods, qualified hospital or hospital facility, and there's conversations about things like mental health, right? Investment in mental health. Although it's primarily a state responsibility, we recognize that our current situation where the largest provider of mental health is the county jail, that's insufficient, inadequate, and it's not working, okay? And so to have the quality of life that we all would want and expect, there are opportunities to invest in things like mental health hospitals or those types of things. Any capital outlay project owned, operated, or administered by the state within the county, and then broad general authorization for cities and counties to fund outlay projects. Much more expansive, right? Whereas the first SPLOST had us confined to that investment really in roads and streets, bridges, and so forth, and some public safety, this gives us the entire table or smorgasbord to choose from. And so we are glad that we are in that position. What I'd like to also talk about, and I'm going to turn it over to TJ Sigler, next slide, is the equalized homestead option sales tax. So for all of the good stuff that comes with the SPLOST and the spending and the ability to build facilities like this facility, and parks and libraries and pave roads, as Commissioner Davis Johnson mentioned at the outset, there's one other little matter that equates to about $1 billion in tax savings. So at the end of the day, this is, both sides of this coin are excellent. And so I'd like to have Mr. Sigler talk about the e-host. And if you have any questions during that come up, do you mind just raise your hand, and we'll hand you a card, and then we'll take the questions at the end, okay? All right. TJ?
All right. Thank you, COO Williams. And good evening, everyone. I'm TJ Sigler. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And my portion of the presentation tonight is to talk about the e-host. The Commissioner did a great job of kind of teeing it up in the introductory remarks, so that's going to make my job a little bit easier. So e-host stands for the Equalized Homestead Option Sales Tax. And so that was the second piece, along with the SPLOST, that was approved by voters in 2017. And if you'll recall, before there was SPLOST, before there was e-host, there was another sales tax that was just simply called HOST, Homestead Option Sales Tax. And so a portion of that, 80% at least, had to be used for property tax relief, and then the other 20% could be used for capital. But there were lots of issues where the county ended up with very little of the capital funding from it. So really in lieu of HOST, that's why e-host and SPLOST were proposed. And so unlike HOST, which, like I said, had a minimum of 80% that was used for property tax relief, e-host is 100% dedicated to property tax relief. And so to qualify for e-host, you need to have a homestead exemption on your property. So if you own your home and it's your primary residence, you should qualify for a homestead exemption. You just have to make sure that you had that applied to your property. And so the way that works is every year we look at how much e-host is generated, and then there's a credit that's applied to the property tax bills. And so for the last 3 years running, that credit has been 100% on the countywide taxes, or the countywide millage rates, which include our county operations / general fund, and the hospital's millage rate. All right, next slide. So in that savings, what you'll see when you look at your tax bill, and I'll have an example on a later slide, is there's a column that's titled e-host credit, and that shows you how much the e-host is saving you on your property taxes. And so from 2018 through the end of last year, the total amount that's been provided in tax relief to CAB homeowners is $591 million from e-host. And by the end of this year, that's going to be over $700 million. And as the commissioner and Zach said, over the next 6 years, we're projecting that to be $1 billion in property tax relief for homeowners. As far as any changes through HB 431, which authorizes SPLOST 2, it did nothing to change the provisions of e-host. So it will continue, if passed, in the exact way that it has for the first 6 years. Also on this slide, you can see there's a link to the county website that has additional information about e-host. That's www.dekalbcountyga.gov/SPLOST/ehost. And then the other link on the slide here is to the tax commissioner's website. So you can find information about homestead exemptions, as well as how to apply for it if you don't have one currently on your property. Okay, next slide. So this table just shows the average amount of sales or property tax savings for different value homes over the last 5 years. What you'll see, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but for 2022, as well as 2021, if your house was $250,000, and that's the fair market value, not the taxable assessment, which is at 40% of that, the savings would be about $850 on your property tax bills. One caveat I'll throw out here is I've had several people say, well, I looked at my bill and my house is worth this much and I didn't get that much of a credit. This is based on a house that has just the basic homestead exemption and doesn't have any of the frozen exemption applied. And the frozen exemption is basically when you have that applied to your home, any increase in your property values, you then receive an exemption for that. And I can probably explain that or show that a little bit better on the next slide. So in the next slide, this is an example of the top portion of your property tax bill. This is taken from the 2022 property tax bill, and so the 2023 looks slightly different. But if you look here, once you go down to where all the taxes are listed, the second to last column says e-host credit. And that shows that for this house, the e-host credit was $810 total. If you refer back to the chart, you'll see, well, first of all, this house has a fair market value of about $330,000. So if you went back to the other chart, you would see that this 810 is less than what's showing up for the 850, or for the $250,000 house. So the reason being is that other column, if you go to the left there, where it says frozen exemption, so that's reducing their tax bill by an additional $350. So if that frozen exemption wasn't in place, the total e-host credit here would have been over $1,100 for this home. So I think with that, that wraps up my portion, so I'll turn it back to Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Sigler. And again, at the end of the day, and what we have managed to do, what you have managed to do with the implementation of SPLOST and the e-host is save our taxpayers annually, I believe, $147 million each year. Okay. What we're doing is through the payment of sales tax, which is paid for not only by us, but paid for by visitors and such, that is offsetting your property tax. So your general fund tax that is paying for jails, me and, all sorts of different courts and such, is reduced as is being articulated. And in many instances, people aren't paying any because of the e-host. I've been doing this 30 some odd years. This is the first time I've seen this, and we're tremendously proud of the e-host. We're also proud of the fact that in this SPLOST, there's two key exemptions because we recognize that there is a regressive nature of, of this sort of taxation. But we exempt food and we exempt pharmaceuticals. So you can look throughout the state, you're not going to find another SPLOST that's implemented in that way. And we did that deliberately, recognizing that, there's an opportunity to help people beyond what the SPLOST already does. And that cost about $10 million. If we were to implement the taxation on food as well as pharmaceuticals, we would gain about $10 million. But sometimes it's not worth the money, right? So we exempt food and we exempt pharmacy in DeKalb County. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Kingsbury. He's our program manager with the firm called Atlas, but he is responsible for the daily oversight and management of the SPLOST team. Chris?
Thanks, Zach. So the next slides, it's all fine print, you just ignore it. I can distill it down to a real simple version of what we do. We've worked with all the metro counties on sales taxes. It's a wonderful program. It's extra money, as Zach said, that everybody, it can be kind of regressive, but not only do we as residents pay it. I went to Towers High School, still live in DeKalb County. All the visitors that come through, all the trucking companies that come through, every dollar spent in DeKalb, they're paying that extra penny. And simply what we do is we're a staff extension because it's extra money. We're extra hands so that all the department heads, Chuck Ellis that runs parks and Peggy Allen running the roads department, they've got their hands full on the things they have to do every day, operating buildings like this, fixing potholes and so forth. We're there to help spend that extra money. You've heard some of those numbers. It's a lot of money. TJ's folks back in 2016, 2017, before we went to the polls in November 2017, said, we think based on the MARTA tax and other history, $388 million is what we'll probably get out of SPLOST 1. First penny rolled in April Fool's Day 2018, 6 years. Teresa Hardy on the Citizens Oversight Group laughing at me. The last penny will roll in for SPLOST 1, 31 March 2024. The current rate, we think, plus the interest we've accrued, which is almost $10 million, will end up somewhere around $410, $420 million. $30 million over the original. And as Zach said, you saw the video, every penny that comes in, SPLOST dollars are segregated. They go into a SPLOST bank account. By law, they can never be mixed with the county's general fund. SPLOST 1 dollars go into SPLOST 1 piggy bank. If SPLOST 2 passes, SPLOST 2 dollars go into SPLOST 2 piggy bank. And the SPLOST 1 dollars will pay for all the types of projects that SPLOST 1 anticipated. And so transportation, we had a $240 million budget, $151 million of that was for resurfacing. As Zach said, we've let 10 contracts averaging around a little over 25 miles each since we started. If we didn't do another letting, we'll have paved 277 miles of roads throughout unincorporated DeKalb County. Public safety, we talked about fire stations. Everybody knows where the fire station is here, Fire Station 14 at Lithonia Industrial in Covington, one of the oldest, built in the late 50s. We've bought property on Covington Highway closer. We're getting ready to close. Main law offer's been accepted across from the Southeastern softball soccer complex. So there'll be a new Fire Station 14. Fire Station 27 in Southeast DeKalb is a little unique because of the size of the area. It had very few stations. The population has grown, and there's a wacky group called Insurance Services Office, ISO. In DeKalb County, I think, Zach, is like at a level 2. With the new fire stations coming online, we'll be at a level 1, the highest. So East DeKalb, Southeast DeKalb will get a new station on Pleasantdale Road off of Highway 24. We've bought the land, it's under design, should go into construction next year. And we're buying land on the south side of the mall off of Turner Hill for Fire Station 28. So those new upgraded stations, more bays, more equipment will help everybody in this room that's a homeowner have a lower insurance rating. And I guess the biggest takeaway I'd like to leave you with is, since it's a pay-as-you-go, every penny that comes in, we account for it. We account for it going out. We're available. Our offices are on the 6th floor next to Zach and the CEO. We know it's the old detective like Nancy Drew and all those stories, who, when, why, where. We know who's responsible, when it's due, why they're supposed to do it, if there's a problem, how we're going to solve it. So over 90% of all the money that's come in, Ms. Johnson and the other commissioners have approved the expenditures, and we're spending it. So there's very little money in that piggy bank. We try to keep a 3 to 4 month reserve if something goes south with the economy, but it's been a very strong economy. So that's what we do. And one more thing that's sort of unique to DeKalb is DeKalb, when we came on board, has a very strong local small business enterprise goal. And to date, about 30+% of every SPLOST dollar spent has gone to a DeKalb County business. I think we're at 34, 35% last time I saw it. It goes up and down every month depending on the size of the contracts. For those are folks that are helping pave the roads, fix the elevators, paint the buildings, resod the parks. It's contractors spread all across the county. So that's what we do and why we're here. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Chris. And for those of you kind of tracking along, or just to understand, we'll go through a couple key things. Chris and his team, or Mr. Kingsbury and his team, manage a software program known as Teams. And so you can go to our website at any time and figure out what's going on, when and where. The information is segregated by commission district, correct?
It's really by your address. We can provide the commissioners information by district. One of the things, the SPLOST law, and Teresa's on the oversight group, it had like 3 goals, 3 simple goals. Spread the work equitably and fairly throughout the county. So when you go to that website, the most interesting map is you click on resurfacing. It looks like Christmas. Every road we resurfaced to date is in green. Every road that's let to contract that we haven't gotten to yet but will get to is in red. And if it's a road under construction, I think some of the ones active right now are actually the north part of the county, near North Lake Mall and unincorporated DeKalb. They'll be in orange for projects underway. But put your address in, and it'll pop up with the projects that are near your house. So, for instance, real quick, I could talk for hours. The SPLOST dollars helped put the new roof on the Bruce Street Recreation Center. We put new playground equipment in Lithonia Park. Redan Park will have all their athletic fields redone this summer. Those contracts are active. So a lot of money spread around the county at no extra cost to you except for that penny at the grocery store.
Except on food.
Except on food, yeah, that's right.
So at this point, this concludes our formal presentation, but we would like to make this as conversational as you like. I do see that Pastor McCoy has the microphone. Uh-oh. We're going to be here a while.
Thank you, Zach. So for those that are in the room, if you have a question, you should have received a card that you can write your question down on, and we will ask the question to our guests who are here presenting. And then also Kathy Warren. Kathy is monitoring the questions online, and so we will be able to ask those questions for anyone viewing online. And I'll start with the first question. It just says, how are the repairs going for streets in DeKalb County? We need help on Farrington and West Farrington Parkway.
So real quickly, the county, in unincorporated DeKalb, Peggy Allen runs the Roads and Drainage Division. Every year, she's got a staff that rides every road. All the counties in Georgia use a system of road rating that Georgia DOT and Federal Highway and all the other states use. It's a visual rating, looks at cracks and alligators and so forth. And it assigns a number, a grade. And SPLOST 1, the decision was made to find the 300 worst graded roads. I think the scores were 0 defects is a perfect road, 36 is a horrible road. So we tried to do 32 and above, I think. So the roads we're resurfacing now are the ones that were horrible, and but for SPLOST we couldn't do. Before SPLOST, Peggy got about $4 to $5 million a year to resurface roads. And when we started SPLOST, we could resurface a road for about $300,000 to $400,000 a mile. The last 3 contracts have been $900,000 a mile, inflation. But even with that, we still get money from the state. So we're close to that target, and we resurface the worst ones first.
Also to note, Farrington and West Farrington is located in the city of Stonecrest, and each of the cities also have their own SPLOST also, for whomever asked that question. And they are responsible for carrying out that SPLOST and those projects within their city. All right. The next question says, I may have missed this, but what's the exact amount for SPLOST 1 and SPLOST 2?
So SPLOST 1 for the county was approximately, we budgeted $388 million. As Mr. Kingsbury just mentioned, because of better than anticipated, quite frankly, revenues, we may end up at order of magnitude $415 million in SPLOST 1. And for SPLOST 2, you've just come out with those numbers, TJ?
Right. It's $496 million.
Yep. And so we're budgeting $496 million for SPLOST 2.
Also, the next question says, what can we do to get our streets paved on Parkway Road, Phillips Street, and Spring Street? And you could always go on that Teams app that Chris talked about to find out if that street is on the paving list currently, or you could always call our office, Demetrius Pinkett, and he could get the street rating for you to determine if that street is on the list or planned to be on the list for whomever asked that question. And it looks like we have a few other questions coming in also. If you're finished with your card, you can certainly just lift it up and we'll come and ask your question. Also, Kathy is going to let us know if we have any questions from online also. I don't believe we have any at this time. Thank you. Okay. Could you verify the construction date and completion time for the fire station off of Pleasant Hill Road?
Great question.
And there's issues, they're concerned about issues with response times being higher. It says average of 52 minutes or margin of plus or minus 2.
So, and I'm going to let Mr. Kingsbury take the timeline. That's a property that we've just closed on.
Actually, we closed on that property the early part of the year. The pandemic was tough to buy property. And so we bought the property.
We had people living there, right?
We had, some people living there that weren't paying rent, the property owner. We had a whole deal of thing to go through. It probably took a year or two longer than we all expected. But it's in the design phase now. We hope to get it on the street this winter. Have a contractor. Fire Station 7, for example, is, if you drive down Columbia Drive near Glenwood, you'll see the new prototype for all the county's fire stations. It's a 2-story building with 3 bays, can park 6 pieces of equipment. Takes about 2 years to build one of those. So unfortunately, it won't happen quickly, but it's on the way.
Right. So the funding is secured, the land is secured, bids on the street, is that what you said? Or
probably this winter. We're finishing the plans and permitting up now.
Okay, all right. So, excellent. So, and one of the, I just want to draw, because I remember when we first started the conversation, and we talk about the ISO rating, the Insurance Safety Organization, that was one of the stations that was a must, because there are areas surrounding that station that we have to use mutual aid from, I believe, Rockdale and Gwinnett to meet the need. So we recognize that if we can put a station right there, that we're going to get the response time, I don't know if it's 5 minutes, or I believe that's the number, which is our goal, which helps with that ISO rating. So, I mean, that was literally in our very first conversations, that was one of the key locations.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Zach. And while we're on the topic of fire stations, I would like to acknowledge that today an announcement was made that our fire chief, Darnell Fulham, received Fire Chief of the Year from the Association of Fire Chiefs in Georgia. So that's very commendable. Your DeKalb Fire Chief. All right. Also, this one is just a comment, Zach. It just simply says, thank you for the 11 roads that were completed in the Hidden Hills community. Excellent performance. Followed by a question about paving. What are the requirements to have my subdivision repaved? My subdivision is 26 years old, Waterton on the Park.
Talk about the rating.
Yeah, I'll go back to my comment earlier about the rating system. So Demetrius can send us the streets and we'll get with Peggy, look up what the current rating system is. Zach will probably kick me under the table if I'm too far away. The reality of it is, if there's almost 1,000 miles of road in unincorporated DeKalb, and I'm going on memory, it's like nearly 20,000 road segments. Stop and think about subdivisions. You might have a quarter-mile long street or a cul-de-sac. Probably 50% of the roads are in that grading system that, yeah, they need to be done because they haven't been touched since they were built 40 or 50 years ago. So we're just trying to keep ahead of falling over the cliff. So, and like Zach said earlier, our sister counties, our neighbors to the east in Gwinnett and Cobb and Clayton to the south, they're on SPLOST 5, 6, 7. And majority of their budgets still go to just catching up with resurfacing as nothing lasts forever.
Thank you, Chris. How do you allocate the projected surplus from SPLOST 1?
So all the expenditures in each SPLOST can only go to projects identified in that SPLOST. So when you say surplus, although we're generating more revenues, one of the key things to remember is what Mr. Kingsbury articulated. When we started, the roads cost about $500,000 a mile to pave. Now they're a little less than $1 million a mile. So we're going to look in the same categories where there are those that may be falling short. We may be able to use that to supplement to achieve the originally articulated goal, but it's going to stay in SPLOST 1. It's restricted to roads, public safety, or the general capital outlay. So it's going to be spent in one of those categories.
The next question asks, when is the deadline for Homestead to get the savings this year? Is there any extra dollars to repave is it April 1st, this coming April 1st? Okay. Of next year, yeah. So April 1st, 2024
Right.
would be
It's too late for 2023. But so for 2024, everyone wants to ensure that your homestead, well, always you want to ensure, but get your homestead taken care of, because it would be a shame, quite frankly, where we are paying, quite frankly, the general fund taxes with e-host funds. Okay, everyone whose sales tax is helping to pay and defray the cost of everyone's general fund taxes and your regular property taxes, if you have the homestead exemption. So,
and that's done through the tax commissioner's office?
It is. And you can go online. I think he has information on that. But
on the tax commission's website. The second part of that question says, is there any extra dollars to repave on a private yet valuable DeKalb County, in the DeKalb County community?
Private?
I think it says private.
Yeah,
yes.
we wish maybe once we get to like SPLOST 23 or 24. But right now we're still in triage mode, and it's all the dollars are going to stay with public property.
Is there any funding in the SPLOST for subdivisions that would like to move from septic tank to sewer line?
So we're looking in SPLOST 2. Is that the question? Okay, so in SPLOST 2, we may have some capabilities to do just that. SPLOST 2 does allow water and sewer investment, but we also have other programs currently in the county that allow for, we have an ordinance that allows for septic to sewer. So there's a whole process that if there is a community that is looking to, and there, you have to sign a petition and things, and enough of the community has to agree. But that's something that we can provide information for now, because that is available. SPLOST 2, we will likely have some things like that. We're not in a position to say what exactly we're proposing in that area, but we do recognize that we need to get people, people need assistance with repairing their laterals, right? And then there's a lot of people whose septic system is antiquated, and it, and to replace it is cost prohibitive. And we would rather everyone be on sewer wherever possible anyway, because it's less contaminations to the groundwater and so forth.
This next question just says, not sure if this question is for this meeting, but wanted to know if the construction on 285 and Boulder Crest Road are part of SPLOST, plus what is that project? And I know that that is a GDOT project. You may be able to speak a little bit more about it, potentially.
It is not a SPLOST project, and it is a GDOT project that, if you're familiar with that part of where Boulder Crest crosses 285 and the 675 interchange, it's going to add what they call collector distributor lanes. Some of y'all may remember Tom Moreland. He just passed away. He was the founder of the firm, was called Moreland Altabelli for decades. We do a lot of work with Georgia DOT too. He retired, we sold the firm, and that's why we're called Atlas now. But that's a big GDOT project. It'll tie into the 285 at 20 and all the work at Georgia 400 and 285. It's a big decade-long plan to help the interstates move faster. Well, I can put a plug in for Cedar Crest Bridge in southwest DeKalb. SPLOST dollars plus GDOT dollars are going to replace that bridge that failed and was closed over the railroad.
Thank you, Chris, for that plug. I think there's one other person who's writing a question, but that's currently the questions that we have. So I think with that final question, that may be it. We don't have any from online, do we, Kathy? All right. Okay. All right. So this is not all you wanted to write? Okay. How many more cards do you need? I'm just kidding. The question is, why is everything contingent on signatures of the homeowners in order to get changes? And I think you might have spoke a little bit to that about just like the sewer process, but there are also other processes that require a certain amount of percentage of approval from homeowners.
Sure. So as it relates to the septic to sewer program and traffic, or what do we call it, street light programs, there's a number of these programs, quite frankly, where we have to have petitions to move them forward, because ultimately it's going to cost the residents. So if we live in, if we lived in a community, speed humps, septic sewer, any of those things, if the county is going to run a sewer line and charge everyone, to connect, because that's how it works. Once you put it in, everyone needs to be in a position to connect. Then you're taking money out of people's pocket. So we want people to be able to make that decision for themselves. And in some instances, quite frankly, like speed humps, some residents don't want it. And it could be the same with septic, could be the same with anything. It's our way, it's really akin to a vote, right? What does the majority, and it's usually not a simple majority, because if you're taking money from people, what does the overwhelming majority want? Yeah. You can ask a follow-up question. He's not paying attention.
I ask that because when you live in a neighborhood that's primarily houses owned by investors, you can't get that signature.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the problems that a lot of the subdivisions are having, because there's more investor-owned property than there is homeowners.
And it's not 100% of the homeowners. Most times it's a majority, 51% or whatever the percentage is for the majority.
Right. But send us information on that. I mean, that's an interesting point, and I see because there's a lot of challenges that can be presented by over-invested in communities.
And with that, I'd like to introduce a couple of public officials that has come in. One is our Representative Deshawn Kendricks. Okay, she just left. I was getting ready to say you may want to talk to her on that as well. We also have City Councilwoman Diane Howard here.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we close out tonight's meeting? All right. One more? Okay. Where's the card?
Over here. Okay. Oh, what's up, man?
It's about subdivision. If the subdivision, in the subdivision is small, so we would have to go into each person, I guess, and find out if they're in favor of.
You're a pastor. I have to hold the mic for you.
Okay. You would have to go into each person and ask them if they're in favor of putting septic tank, sewage in there.
Yes, it's running a sewer line, yes.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that if you like, we can get you the information on how that program works. But yes, it would be, if there's 10 folks or 10 households, each one is going to have an opportunity to vote
Okay,
or sign a petition, but essentially.
thank you, okay.
Thank you. I think that concludes all our questions. Can we, one more? We're at, right here. Last question. Whose hand is up? Okay.
I had a question still related to that one with the sewer and septic. I'm wondering if there is a provision so going back to the statement in the front where they said oftentimes the subdivisions have investors, they're not necessarily motivated like homeowners. You can't get those signatures. The investor is a company, you don't necessarily know who it is. So to get those signatures throughout a subdivision or community may be challenging. I think we can all acknowledge that. I think the other thing is that when you talk about septic to sewer, there may be 5 houses in the community that are having septic issues because of their logistics, because of how they are located. They may be at the bottom of the hill, and so all the water is running down to that house, while the homeowner's sitting at the top of the hill like, no, I'm good. I'm good on my septic. I don't need sewer. What do you do in that situation when you have homeowners who the cost of that is cost prohibitive, which we talked about a little earlier. I appreciate your comment around that because it is true. And how do we in DeKalb County help those homeowners who would not be able to get the buy-in from the community because they're not motivated?
Right. Excellent question. And I see that it's really 2 parts. One, we may be able to assist in having conversation if there's enough of a mass, right? But the issue seems to be that an investor or multiple investors is holding out. Maybe we can help by having conversation with them, and that's something that we would be willing to do. But also, depending on the circumstance, there are programs where we can help with laterals, and it may not always be simply connecting the home to a sewer line, because in that scenario, there's going to have to be a sewer line nearby, right? So, I think we would have to look at each circumstance. What you just described, where you have homes at the bottom, I don't know that would impact the septic as much as it would stormwater. So we would have to just have a better understanding of each circumstance. And so it starts with just having conversation.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. And let's give them a big hand. One thing about coming to the city of Lithonia, they always have another ask, And so I was just sitting here with Councilwoman Diane, and she wants to know about the pool at she wants to know about the pool at in the park. Well, Lithonia Park, right?
What's that?
At the athletic center across the street. Oh, the basketball court. Okay. Okay, yeah, but we'd have to talk about that. I was talking to you about the pool at Lithonia Park. Yeah, but we're going to work on that for Splash. And, I know if you all talk to the administration like you talk to me, we'll get that pool put in. We'll get that park done. But thank you all so much. And as Mr. CEO stated, this is a beautiful, beautiful center. I'm glad this is our first event at the center. It won't be our last. But thank you all for being here tonight for this informative presentation. My Director of Constituent Service is Demetrius Pinkett. And so any particular questions that you may have or any follow-up information that you may need from this meeting or just any questions in general, you can always contact him. And he's very receptive of getting right back with you. And we'll do all that we can to help whatever situation you may have. So I encourage you to visit the county website at www.DeKalbSplosh.com to continue to learn more about the DeKalb County Splosh program and its benefits. Again, I'm Commissioner Mereda Davis Johnson, and I want to thank you for allowing me to serve as your district commissioner. Now, your state representative, Doreen Carter, is always saying, well, y'all didn't give me notice. Y'all didn't give me notice. She got notice. And she had 4 meetings, so she wanted to come here. So let's give Doreen a hand. I want to thank everyone again for coming out. Doreen, do you want to have 1 minute to say something to your... Just 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. As she said, I'm Doreen Carter. I'm the state representative for House District 93 that covers parts of DeKalb, Rockdale, and Newton County. So I started in Rockdale and moved my way back. I just want to say that I love DeKalb, and we have the absolute best commissioner in all of the world. And thank you for all of the work that she does for us. And as your state representative, if there's something that we could do to support you at the state level, please don't hesitate to call.
Okay. Okay, that was good. So let's give a hand for our 2 Lithonia City Council women. I tell you, they are on me about helping whatever we can do. But I'm going to tell you, we work in partnership. And I love the city of Lithonia and their representatives because we get a lot done working together. And so with that, I'd like to say, okay, and with that, I'd like to introduce Teresa Hardy, who is the CEO's representative to the Splosh Committee, and y'all can always contact her as well. So thank you all for being here, and you all have a safe, I'm glad the rain is gone. I prayed for it to be gone. And y'all have a safe trip home.
It's just like right here. There's the exit right here.